Well, I think the idea of change isn't just in technology companies, it's all over, right? I mean, the one thing that we know about our customers is that they're complex and constantly changing, which means for us, our business is complex and constantly changing. And you talked really eloquently about how there's a growth trap and that lots of times change happens so much that we're reactive. We're not planning, we're not strategic. And I just love to have you talk a little bit about that. And what do we do to address the growth trap?
Yeah, I think a lot of organizations, especially when they're in between phase, they might be small or medium, and they're really striving to get to that next level, or they're experiencing rapid growth that they can't keep up with. They get stuck in, as you mentioned, that trap. They get in kind of like a survivor mode. And then they tend to become a little bit complacent where they're relying on and leaning on that kind of historical behavior of, well, we've always done it this way. And because they're stretched by the growth, they're stretched within the organization. And lots of times that can mean resources or finances. There's people in the organization wearing multiple hats and they're stretched on a daily basis. And that's what I mean by survival mode, that they're just trying to get through the things they got to get through in a day. And there's not time for planning or being strategic. And it becomes a lot more reactive environment than a proactive environment. So I think it's really finding ways to work within those constraints to allow time to really plan. But it's within the planning that's important. It's the proactive planning that really is going to set you up for the ability to execute. And if you're not doing that, I've seen it where it can be detrimental to companies.
And that planning, it can't be planning for planning's sake. There has to be a foundation underneath that planning that is where we're learning as an organization and making decisions that are very, very informed. And you have a real strong point of view that is shared by many of the world's largest consulting firms, but that the voice of the customer is the most important voice in the business. They're the highest voice of authority. They're the customer. Everything we do is to solve their challenges. And you, as the head of the contact center, you talk to more customers than anyone. Tell me a little bit about how you're learning to adapt to all the change in the understanding of the customer, but how does that start to fit in with the growth and the planning for the company itself?
Well, I think you have to start with your customer insights. You have to be gathering customer insights because you're right. Customers are the piece that's driving your business to grow. And you want to be meeting those customer needs as you're growing and adapting to their changes as well. But you need to be aware of those changes in order to adapt. So the first thing you need to be doing is making sure you're gathering customer insights. So then that can follow along with the next steps you need to do in your planning, which would be looking at building your customer persona, then building out that voice of the customer, doing your customer journey mapping, and all that needs to tie into your strategic planning. Customer centricity should be a key element of your strategic planning as an organization. And then you need all your other strategic objectives to tie into that from the bottom up. And I think you take a bottom up approach, but then it's got to be pushed from the top down, if that makes sense.